Hello everybody and welcome back to the second shelf and back to another Books Weekly, my Sunday video in which I discuss books that I've either finished from a previous week or read last week or started last week. And if you've seen last Books Weekly from last Sunday, you might remember that I didn't actually start a book, but there were two books that I was contemplating on reading, and I ended up reading them both. So the first book that I finished from previous week is A Separation by Kitamura. Kitamura, I said that in the previous video, is a young Japanese-American writer who had written previous fiction. Separation is her third book. It got quite some buzz, but mixed reviews. And, well, let me tell you what the book is about first. The book is written in first-person perspective. A young woman, I would say in her late 30s. We never know her name. She works as a translator, and the book opens when she received a phone call from her mother-in-law, Isabella, about the young woman's husband, Christopher. Unknown to the world and Isabella, the narrator and Christopher have separated, but they haven't told anybody. So Isabella calls her daughter-in-law inquiring about Christopher because it turns out Christopher went to Greece and went missing. So the narrator travels to Greece looking for her estranged husband, and the story takes off from there. It's a very slow-moving novel. I have no idea why anybody, publicist or marketing people at Riverhead, would try to sell the book as the next Gone Girl, as a thriller, because it's definitely not a thriller, even though we have a missing husband, and about halfway through we learn what happened, why he went missing. But it's definitely not a thriller. Instead, it's a long contemplation by the first-person narrator about marriage, about her cheating husband, about other people's marriage, about relationships of her friends. I liked the writing. I think it's very well written. You get sucked into this world, this narrator's world. My main problem was that, I'm really not that interested in a narrator whose whole world centers about relationships with men, be it her own relationships or other people's. I mean, we know that she worked as a translator, but that never, the work or other things other than relationships never seemed to play a role in her life at all. And that's just not my kind of book. So I can also understand that it got really mixed reviews. I think if you are interested in that particular topic, in a woman who is centering her thoughts around relationships, her own relationship, but also looking at other people only with the, with the glasses on, that say relationship, then you might enjoy the book. If you are, like me, a more plot-oriented reader who is expecting, some character development or something else about the character than just, quote-unquote, her contemplation about relationships, then you might end up, like me, being rather disappointed with the book. But like I said, I think it might appeal to some readers, but it was just not really for me. Oh, and I should have said, probably, with A Separation, it's a new book. It was published, I think, beginning of February of this year. The other book I was contemplating last weekend was Fever Dream by Samanta Schweblin. Samanta Schweblin is an Argentinian writer. The book was first published in 2014 in Spanish, obviously, duh. But the English translation was published, I think, this year or beginning of this year, last year or beginning of this year. Fever Dream is a fantastic book. It's about Amanda, a young woman lying in the hospital, and having feverish dreams, hallucinations almost. She is dying. That's not a spoiler. We learn that in the right away in the first paragraph. And next to her is a young boy, David, turns out to be the son of Amanda's friend Carla. And the whole book is a conversation between David asking questions and Amanda trying to figure out what happened to her, to David, to Amanda's daughter Nina. There is something about a poisonous well, dying horses. We don't really know what happened, and warning, if you are expecting a book in which you will at the end know exactly what has happened, no, you won't. It's not a book like that. But the writing is so powerful, and the almost gothic atmosphere of these two people, David and Amanda, in the hospital, and Amanda having these feverish thoughts about what happened. I thought it was just beautiful. It was, by the way, the book was nominated. It's on the long list of the Man Booker International Prize. I will leave a link to the Man Booker website down below. And if you're interested in the Man Booker, Sophie from a Portal Between the Pages made a really great video introducing all the 13 books that are long listed. So I will leave a link to that as well if you want to check it out. And if you want to read along with other people, there's a Goodreads group, Man Bookering, and at the moment we are reading the long list, and we will, continue reading until the prize is announced in June. So Samanta Schweblin's Fever Dream, I think, is a beautiful novel, especially because of the writing, especially because of the very special voice Schweblin creates here. It's haunting, it's subtle, it's a little bit gothic, but again, it's not for readers expecting all their questions answered. The next book I read last week is a debut novel by Clare Fisher. I'm not sure how to pronounce the name. I tried to check on YouTube but couldn't find anything, so I'll stick with Clare Fisher, and that is All the Good Things. The book will only come out in June of this year, but you can request a copy via NetGalley and read it now already. Clare Fisher was born in 1987 in London. She works as a bookseller in Leeds, and as I said, All the Good Things is her first book. All the Good Things is about Beth, a 21-year-old woman who is in prison. We don't know yet. We only learn much later why she is in prison. We can sort of guess throughout the book why. And she is seeing herself as a monster because of what she did. She then, in the beginning of the book, meets Erica, a counselor, and Erica gives her a notebook and asks Beth to write down all the good things that happened in her life. So the book is Beth telling us, chapter by chapter, some of the good things that happened in her life, and throughout those good things we learn about Beth's life, how she grew up, how she was in foster care because her mother abandoned her. We learn about her relationships with various men, about the baby when she got pregnant and gave birth to a baby girl. So the structure is that through the writings of Beth we learn about her life, and we learn about, in the end, what happened. Now, I always like very much to read a new novelist, a book by a new voice, and Clare Fisher is certainly a really interesting new voice. What is very good about the book, in my opinion, is that Fisher was able to really create Beth's voice throughout the book very strongly. The book is in Beth's perspective, and the way Clare Fisher created this protagonist, I think is really very strong, especially for a debut. I have some, you know, lesser points. I think the structure is a bit, structured. If you are an experienced reader, you will, know from the beginning where this is headed. You sometimes have a little bit the feeling that this setting, Erica and Beth, and the good things to contemplate is just a tool in order to bring the plot forward. And I also think that there are some stereotypical things in there about, how you live with foster parents and what happened to Beth and how that is portrayed. It's just not that good. But again, it's a first novel by a very young writer. At least from my point of view. I'm just realizing that I call everybody a young woman, even if they're in their mid-30s. That's what you get when you are as old as I am. But anyway, born in 1987, the author, it's a young author. So I always think you shouldn't be too harsh, you shouldn't judge too harshly, because there's certainly room for development. And if you're interested in that topic of a young protagonist, 21 years old, being in prison, telling her story, I think it's a good book. It's not an excellent book, but it's a quite good book. And the last book is the book that I've just started this weekend, and that's Sarah Baume, A Line Made by Walking. Sarah Baume is also a young British writer. Her debut novel, Spill, Simmer, Falter, Wither, was published in 2015 to much acclaim. I can't comment on that because I hadn't read it, but I was interested in her as a writer, and when she published her second book, beginning of this year, I picked it up. I don't know much about it. I'm about 35 pages in. It's about a 20-something artist, Frankie, who has all kinds of problem with her art and her life, and decides to spend some time in a very reclusive rural family home all by herself. The book opens when she's there for 3 weeks or something, all by herself. I have no idea what will happen. I like the writing so far, and I will report back next week when I've read it. So this was it for this week's Book Weekly. Thank you all very much for watching. As always, I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to your comments if you want to leave any comment on any of the books I've mentioned, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.